What's happening, guys? I was not expecting to be making a video today. I did know that there was going to be downtime and some maintenance in the game, but I was not expecting us to get an actual patch in the game. But we did. We have the patch here for Diablo 4. This is the 1.0.3 build. This went live out to all platforms. That means we'll be able to have it on PC and on console. And we have a lot of things happening in this patch. And I have to say, at the glance that I took at it before getting this video started, I think we're moving in a pretty good direction. Let's take a look at what we have going on here. I'll post this patch down in the description if you guys want to take a look at it yourself, because we are not going to cover everything that's in this patch here in this video. We are just going to go straight to the juicy stuff. There's a lot of bug fixes for dungeons and events and things like that you'll be able to see here. UI changes and stuff like that, quality of life changes, things like that aren't going to affect every single person. But just know if you have run into a bug in Diablo 4, chances are it's being fixed in here because there's a big list of them. You'll see as we scroll down through here. These are all dungeons, events, and other activities bug fixes. We have a whole list of gameplay fixes. We have a AI trying to tell us what we're reading there. We have local co-op fixes if you're the couch co-op type of player. We have quest fixes. We have UI fixes, a big list of UI fixes, and a bunch of miscellaneous fixes on there too. So a ton of things getting fixed that weren't correct in the game. And you might want to browse through there if there's a problem that you've been running into kind of often. If it's not listed in there, make sure you voice it on the forums, on Twitter, and whatever, so that way the devs can be aware of the problem existing, put in a bug report, and they can get that thing fixed here going into the future. Now, the gameplay adjustments and the balance changes are going to be the important things that we really care about as players playing the game. This is going to affect our gameplay directly in the way that we experience the game in a bug-free nature. So the first thing we have is experience rewards. Everybody knows that this is a problem. If you're the type of player who hasn't gotten to the end game yet, then this might not affect you yet, but you would get here. And luckily for you, I guess it's going to be fixed before you get here. But if you've been trying to do nightmare dungeons, everybody telling you not to do them other than to level your glyphs, because it's not the most efficient way to level up. And we're taking a step in the correct direction to get that fixed here. So the first thing that we have is significantly increase the experience awarded for completing nightmare dungeons. Now, this doesn't increase the rewards or drops you get for doing them, but this is going to increase the experience to hopefully get it, at least on par with doing regular dungeons. Significantly increase the experience gained from killing monsters in nightmare dungeons. That's huge. We love that. Helltide chests now provide substantially more bonus experience when opened. If you don't know, when you do Helltides, you collect a resource called cinders. Use those cinders to open up chests. They give you rewards. Now they're also going to provide substantially more experience, making it more worthwhile to actually go out and do the Helltides. Significantly increase reward experience from completing individual whispers across the board. So once you first get into the end game, doing the whispers is a great way to get a lot of gear and get your character situated. But they fall off very quickly in terms of experience. And after you have all the aspects and most of the gear you need, doing the whispers just isn't really worth it anymore. But with a significantly increased reward to the experience, it might make it worth going and doing those whisper quests more often. So we'll have to see what exactly that reward is, and and is it worth going and doing those things now. They also fixed an issue where no experience was rewarded for completing the holdout style event that can occur after finishing dungeon objectives. That is absolutely poo. Honestly, I haven't noticed this personally. It's probably happened to me. I've done a ton of dungeons out there, but hey, this is a fix, and more experience is the direct way we want to go. So now there's more of a reason to be doing these end game objectives, And hopefully this will get people doing those objectives more often. Because if you don't know, the current meta is just to spam regular dungeons back to back to back to back to back, as it's the most efficient way for gear and experience. And there's no reason to do the real end game content like the Nightmare Sigils. So in general, the Helltide roaming bosses will now more consistently drop higher quality loot. This is good. So there's that one really hard bug boss that you have in the Helltide. His name's like Raxa something. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Or Crixa something. And he has a ton of health. If you're not using like an S tier build, killing him solo is nearly impossible. Especially not worth the time. Since I've switched to the tornado build for the Druid, we can kill him in about 3 or 4 seconds now, as long as he doesn't do no weird teleports. And he still is not worth it even at killing him in just a few seconds, because he just doesn't drop anything meaningful. So we'll see if this is a change to that. Maybe he'll drop some more legendaries or maybe uniques now. That would be fantastic. It's good to have a reason to want to hunt these things out in the Helltides, right? Because if they don't drop anything, you're supposed to be excited when you see these bosses roaming around in the Helltides or any area of the game, right? It's just like a treasure goblin or anything like that. If you see them on your map, you're supposed to be excited to want to go and try to fight them and kill them and get their loot and stuff like that. There's currently not any excitement for that, so we'll see if this makes a bit of a change. Players can now teleport to Nightmare Dungeons directly through their map. We knew that this change was coming. Didn't expect to see it this early. I thought this was going to be a Season 1 change myself personally. My hot take, I don't like this. I think it's really weird to build a world out there, right? Build this overworld, build this MMO style of a game, and now taking that away in terms of, like, if people have the option to teleport to a dungeon, they're going to teleport to a dungeon because it's the most efficient way to do it. You're eroding away at that world that you're building out there, the open world. And what there really should be is it should be adding reasons to make people want to run to the dungeons. That means making the world more interesting, making the events more worth completing out there in the open world, having special things that happen out in the open world that are worth doing. So that way running to a Nightmare Dungeon doesn't have to feel like a bad waste of time. This is just a Band-Aid fix to what the real problem is, and that is that the overworld is uninteresting. I don't think this is a bad thing, being able to teleport to the dungeon, but it's very similar to, like, when they added flying into World of Warcraft. Flying is the most efficient way to do the thing, which is, transporting from one area to another. So everybody is going to fly, and what that does is it kills the world. Now you rarely ever see people running around. The world PvP gets worse. The doing quests gets worse. Farming gets worse. It erodes away at the world that they're trying to build. But more people will be happy about being able to teleport to the dungeons than will be unhappy. So overall, it is a positive for the general consensus of the game. But I think at a deeper understanding level of the game, that this erodes away at some of the core principles that they're trying to build in the game. And I do think that is a long-term problem. The weekly bonus caches for world bosses no longer have a level requirement for opening. So when I started doing the World Tier 4 world boss at like level 65 or something, and I couldn't open those until level 80. That really felt bad. It really felt bad. So then when I did get to level 80, I had like 8 caches to open or something. I don't know. I just had a stack of caches to open, and by that time, my character's pretty fully geared out. So they all just dropped vendor loot. There was just nothing in them that was very helpful at all. It all got salvaged or sold to the vendors, and it was just a very bad feeling. So they're removing that level requirement, which is good. There's really no reason for that level requirement to be on there to begin with. I think it was just an oversight, and I'm glad they were able to get that fixed, fairly quickly. As a developer's note, it says we're currently working on increasing monster and elite density of end game content, and plan to introduce this change early in Season 1. But the first red flag there says early in Season 1 and not with Season 1. I'm not really sure. It seems like they have Season 1 in a box currently, and they don't want to open the box, right? It's like they finished Season 1, and they're not going to open that box for anything. in fear of it breaking or whatever the case may be. They're just keeping that box closed, and that's all there is to it. Same thing about the gem bag, right? They want to add the gem bag. They said they can't do it in season 1. Doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand it, but I'm also not a developer, and I'm not here to tell the developers that they're wrong about something. But I'm just saying it doesn't make sense from a consumer point of view that these things can't be introduced with season 1. But if it does come early enough in season 1, then sure, whatever. It's just a little bit of confusion on the end of the consumer. But that will be great, and this is taking a step again towards being able to do endgame content the way that it's supposed to be done, with the higher experience that we're already getting right now, and then also the density of the endgame content in terms of elites and monsters, which will lead to more drops, more loot, etc., etc. That is fantastic. The balance changes. We're continuing our effort to make all class builds feel fun and powerful with another round of balance updates. In particular, we have seen community feedback stating that basic skills aren't impactful enough in combat. These changes will not change the fundamental relationship between basic skills and core skills, but we hope that they smooth out the experience while we explore additional ways to strengthen them. We are also increasing the power of some skills that players feel are lagging behind their peers. As we look forward to the future updates, we're monitoring other heavily discussed topics such as minion survivability and build parity. Please keep sending us your feedback, and we'll see you in Sanctuary. So the problem is that Diablo wants to use this this builder spender system where you have your basic skills that build up your resource, and then you have your main skill that spends that resource. They don't want to give up on that. So what they're going to do instead is they're going to buff all of the basic skills to make them feel usable, because that is a problem with the game right now. That is, it never feels good to use your basic skill, and that's a problem, right? It's a chore to use it just to be able to use your core skill. So what they need to do is they need to be able to make the basic skill actually feel good to use, right? That means making it do a little more damage, or making it interact in a way that is unique and not just to build up resource. They do this a little bit by having them apply Fortify or Vulnerable or whatever the case may be. But there's just missing the mark a little bit. So they're going to go through and do a little round of buffs on those, and hopefully they'll feel better to use. So starting out with the Barbarian, Lunging Strike has a base damage increase from 30 to 33, and Fury generated from 9 to 10. Lunging Strike was already a pretty decent ability, I think. It really wasn't bad, so this is just around the buffs. Bash also getting similar treatment. Fury from 10 to 11. Fortify increased from 10 to 20. That's a huge difference there. Frenzy base damage increased from 20 to 22%. That's big. Flay gets bleeding base damage increased from 36 to 40. Fury generated up by 1. And vulnerable chance increased from 10 to 15. That's pretty good. Base damage increased from 36 to 40 on double swing. Kick gets a cooldown reduction and then knocks enemies back into terrain, increased from 54 to 70. That's pretty big. With charge, the meme charge, enhanced charges base damage dealt to enemies knocked back into terrain from 15 to 30, doubling the damage on that. That's pretty good. Leap, slow increase from 50 to 70. I don't think that's super relevant. Iron Skin barrier increased from 10 to 20% of maximum life. This is actually huge. That's a huge increase right there. Prime Call of the Ancients bonus attack speed increased from 10 to 20. 10% attack speed is big. That is a big one. Iron Maelstrom cooldown from 60 to 45. That's big. Crit chance increased from 10 to 30. That's really big, with the critical strike damage being doubled from 20 to 40. This is a huge buff all around for Iron Maelstrom. That's really big right there. With Bounding Slam, damage increase from 75 to 112. And then there's going to be some legendary aspects that are getting buffed. Looks like we're getting Earthquake flat damage, Dust Devil flat damage. Remember, flat damage is really good, because remember, the flat comes before all of the multipliers. So these numbers might look like small increases, but once you start multiplying your different buckets of damage, like vulnerable and all of these different things, crit chance and all of that, these turn into very big increases that you can't see at this level. So if you know how the math works on damage, which we do have a video for how to increase your damage, make sure you check that out. It came out last night. Check that out in the channel. Looks like some pretty big. Looks like some pretty big changes here. If this is any indication of what all the other classes are going to look like, that's huge. Because currently, the only thing the barbarians know is how to be nerfed. So this is a big difference to them. This is going to be a big shock to them. Let's take a look at the Druid. I do play Druid, so I have a little more insight on this. Earth Spike getting a base damage increase from 16 to 17%. Base damage is huge. Spirit generated up by 1. Fortify increased from 4% to 8%. That's big. Earth Spike is not a great ability, but there are a couple builds that use it here and there. Wind Shear, base damage up by 1%. Spirit generated up by 1. Nothing crazy happening there. Claw is already a really good ability, especially when you're using the unique staff. That makes it also cast Storm Strike. Base damage going up by 2%. That's really big. Spirit generated up by 1. The double attack chance going up by 5%. So you got an extra 5% to do an extra attack. And then the Fierce Claw base damage increased from 10 to 15%. I don't think that one gets used very much. You're already applying poison pretty easily, but there may be scenarios for that. Mauled never feels good. This is a very bad feeling ability. 2% damage buff, 1 to the Fury generation, and then Fortify increase from 2 to 3%. I don't think anybody's willingly playing Maul if they don't need to. Lightning Storm. So this is an ability that it really fits the theme of the Druid, but it doesn't feel good to use because it's a channeling ability. You have to stand still. And if anybody knows anything about ARPGs, standing still usually means death. So enhanced lightning storm duration increased from 4 to 6 seconds. I don't think that's enough to really matter. It just means you can go from pack to pack a little bit easier without losing your buff. And then the primal lightning storm's chance to immobilize increased from 8 to 12. That's pretty good. That adds a bit of survivability to it while you're standing still. If you can immobilize the enemies easier, then you'll have an easier time to survive the attacks. So no damage buff in particular to it, but a quality of life buff with the duration, and then a little bit of survivability with the immobilize. Shred is ability that was like on the verge of being really good, and it's just missing the mark. So this could be a big one. The third attack base damage increased from 60 to 70. That's great. Enhanced Shred healing from 1% to 2%. Unnecessary. Doesn't matter. Raging Shred's base damage increased from 51 to 70. Now, that is big, but Primal is what most people are using, and that has critical strike damage increase from 20% to 30. This might be enough to push Shred up to being a really decent skill. It's going to be hard to outdo Tornadoes. Tornadoes are just way overtuned. But if you do enjoy the melee playstyle, Shred is definitely in a good spot now, especially with the claw buffs. Wolves are just a completely useless skill, to be completely honest. Cooldown reduced from 14 to 11 doesn't matter. Ferocious lucky hit chance increased from 10 to 40 doesn't matter. I'm pretty sure Ferocious Wolfpack lucky hit just gives you Fortify. So yeah, I don't think this makes wolves any more usable than they currently are. If you are currently using wolves, enjoy. You get a little bit of a buff, but nothing significant happening there. Hurricane base damage increased from 97.5 to 134%. They have to be careful with this. Hurricane can become a monster of an ability if they're not careful with buffing this, especially with the aspect that makes the damage of Hurricane increase as its duration goes on. You start mixing in a little bit of cooldown reduction and base damage increases and multipliers. Hurricane can very quickly become an extremely overpowered ability and is already a very good utility. So this will be very interesting to see if somebody can break this. Rabies, base poisoning damage increased from 53% to 76%. Very nice. I am a big fan of the Rabies ability. I was in Diablo 2. My very first iteration of my Druid was to play Rabies. Just didn't quite get there in terms of damage. Cataclysm, really surprised to see Cataclysm on the list here. It was already an extremely good ability, but its base damage being increased from 52 to 64%. That's big. I can definitely see a lot of people using it. Lacerate, base damage increased from 400 to 460. If the shred ability gets buffed, buff is big enough, and the claw ability is already really good, especially after the buffs, and now you're buffing lacerate, you might see a full melee wolf build coming up here. These things might be enough. That's really interesting. Petrify was already a really good ability for an ultimate crit strike damage bonus increase from 25 to 30%. That's great. I'm using Petrify in one of my builds currently, so hey, free damage coming up there. Pummel, I don't think anybody really uses Pummel. I don't know if this 40% damage increase really matters, but it is right there from 140 to 180. Bestial Rampage was already a really good passive. Attack speed bonus increase from 20 to 25%. That's big. And then the damage going up by 10%. That's great. Nature's Fury, I can't believe this thing's getting a buff. It's already used in almost every single ability or every build for a Druid. The chance to cast a free spell increased from 20 to 30%. That's huge. That's giga. Nobody really uses Looping Ferocity, but the damage increase from 60 to 70%. I don't know if that's enough to make it usable over some of the other options that are available for ultimate abilities. But hey, there it is. Now, these ones we don't really care quite as much about. The Runeworker's Conduit, flat damage increase from 1 to 1.4, Mangled. I don't think there's a ton of people using that. 30 to 40% to 30, or 20 to 30 to 30 to 40. Seismic Shift, maybe. This could be a decent one here. Cooldown decreased from 2.5 to 1.5 to 2 to 1. So this would be, hardly noticeable, but every little bit counts. And then Blurred Beast damage increased from 60 90 to 70 to 100. Very little changes there. Overall, very good changes for the Druid. I don't think any of that is bad. And it's very nice to see now, out of 2 of the classes we've gone through, all buffs, no nerfs. I don't think there's anything that really needed to be nerfed other than really broken mechanics that they might have to look at, such as like the Blizzard Sork being able to instantly kill Lilith and something like that. That seems like not something where you need to nerf abilities, but maybe interactions just aren't working the way that they thought they were going to work, because players are very good at breaking things. So Reap gets the base damage increase by 1%. It does not give you more essence, but you do get more corpses. Decompose, base damage up by 3%. Essence generated per second up by 1. Corpses formed frequently increased from 2.5 to 2. That's big. Hemorrhage, base damage up by a few percent. And then the essence generated. Bone Splinters was already really good. It's getting more damage and more essence. Sever, initial base damage up by 3%, and then Enhanced Sever's return base damage from 25 to 40. That's a big increase there. I don't know if anybody really uses Sever. Mechanically, it's kind of clunky, and Bone Spears is just way too good. Blood Lance, Supernatural Blood Lance overpower requirement reduced from 8 to 6. So this, for Blood Lance, you would have guaranteed overpowers every 8. Now this can be down to 6. That's huge. Yeah, that means you're getting significantly more when you're spamming it, getting significantly more overpowers. And if anybody plays an overpowered build, you know that overpower damage is a significant increase. Bone Prison cooldown reduced by 2, and then the Fortify increased by a few percent, so more survivability there. Iron Maiden, which is the curse, base damage increased from 10 to 20%. Horrid Iron Maiden damage increase from 15 to 20%. Corpse Tendrils, which I do think a decent amount of builds already use. The chance upon Blood Orbs increased from 30 to 35. Huge. That's big in a lot of different ways. I'm pretty sure Necromancers use Blood Orbs as damage buffs for overpower, I think, right? And also it is, survivability. Bone Spikes. Base damage increased from 80 to 120. Hold on, let me just hop in the game real quick here, guys. I want to take a look. I don't remember what Bone Spikes is off the top of my head. I'm just gonna log in here real quick. You guys can't see it, but there you go. I just want to read what Bone Spikes does. Off the top of my head, I just, for whatever reason, I'm drawing a blank. I can't think of it. I have a Necro that we were leveling up. I'm going to assume it's coming after here. Bone Storm. What is Bone Spikes? Bone Spirit? Maybe I'm crazy. What? Am I just crazy? Spiked armor. Yeah, I feel like I'm missing. Hey, well, let me know down in the comments what the heck bone spikes is. I just don't see it. I don't see it anywhere. This is going to highlight another problem that we hopefully will at some point see in the game is a actual search feature. That would be fantastic. We could actually have a search feature somewhere in the game, which is not currently something that we have. So, yeah, I don't know what bone spikes is. I feel like I've probably like highlighted over it, and I just don't see it. I'm not a Necro Andy. It just looks like a pretty big increase, so I was kind of curious as to what that is. At first, I was thinking spike armor, but that's a different name. That's not it. I feel like I'm committed now. I'm committed to finding it. It would have to be after the corpse tendrils, right? Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, well, I'll just forever be in the land of confusion here until somebody lets me know. Well, whatever it is, it's getting a little bit of a buff there. Bone Spike's base damage increased from 80% to 120. That's big. It's a 40% buff to whatever Bone Spikes is. Maybe, oh, you know what it might be? Maybe it's an ability used by a golem or something similar to that. That might be the answer. Minions will now always engage target with a cast curse. This is huge. One of the big problems, and this is something that PoE had already solved, one of the big problems, I played Necromancer a little bit in the beta, was that the minions AI is just not great. It just would not do what you needed it to do sometimes. There's primary targets that you want to be attacked, and getting the summons to do that didn't always work out. So being able to use your curse now as a way to force your minions to attack a particular target, very, very nice. These are passive increases. So we have Kalan's Edict, damage taken during duration requirement reduced from 3 to 2 seconds. Rathma's Vigor, health duration requirement reduced from 15 to 12 seconds. Spiked armor, thorns increased. We already know thorns on the Necro hasn't been amazing. This might help with that. The legendary aspects for bursting bone flat damage increase. Remember, flat damages are always good. Flesh rending essence gained increase. That's big. That's a double buff there. That's fantastic. And then the fast blood ultimate cooldown reduction increased. That's pretty big. So overall, this looks good. If you guys all know, Necromancer is currently the best class, other than cheesing it with the Sork. Necromancer is the best class for killing Uber Lilith, so a lot of people are playing Necromancers. A lot of people are going to be feeling those buffs. For the Rogue, we have Invigorating Strikes. They're getting a base damage increase. We have Blade Shift, base damage increase. And we have Heartseeker, base damage increase, with primary Heartseeker damage increase from 30 to 75. That's huge. More than double. More than double on that. Heartseeker didn't feel good mechanically to use, but I'll tell you, if the damage increases enough, then people will just use it, even if it mechanically doesn't feel great. If the damage is there, people are going to use it. Forceful Arrow base damage increased by 2%, Barrage by 2%, Caltrops. The Chill increased from 20 to 25%. Smoke Grenade cooldown reduced by 2 seconds. A Rain of Arrows, mechanically, again, a very bad skill. It does not feel good to press the button. A 5-second cooldown reduction is not going to help that. It needs like another 10 seconds on top of that, maybe even more. Prime Rain of Arrows imbue potency increased from 20 to 30. Not happening. Needs a base damage increase or something. More hits. I don't know what the deal is, but Rain of Arrows just isn't it. Volley base damage increase 70 to 105. That's a number. That's a big one. Definitely keep an eye on that. The close quarters combat damage, I'm really surprised to see this getting a buff. This is already a really, really good passive. The damage bonus increased from 20 to 30%. Escape Artist getting a cool, whoa, 100 to 45 seconds. Yikes, that's big. That is really big. And then the lucky hit chance to gain a Dark Shroud increased from 30 to 50 to 40 to 60. That is big. This is already used in multiple rogue builds, so getting a buff here. The increased Death Trap cooldown reduced from 30 to 15%, from 20 to 15. I'm not sure if anybody really used that. I've not really seen any builds using that, but maybe the cooldown will make it a bit more usable. Moving on to Sorcerer, which is the most played class in the game. Thanks to Barbarian for that one. So they were really good, especially with the Hydra build in the betas. Hydra's got giga nerfed, and people still playing the Sorcerer the most out of any class on launch. They found multiple other builds that work very well, and it looks like they're probably going to be walking into some buffs here also. So Spark base damage increased by 2%. Enhanced Spark increased from 5.6 to 7. Flickering Spark Chance increased from 3 to 4. Frostbolt base damage up by 3%. Burning damage up by 4% on Firebolt. Charge Bolt up by 2% base damage increase. Incinerate, easily the worst feeling ability in the game. No amount of buffs are going to make this ability feel good. Base damage increased by 5%. Enhanced Incinerate damage increased by 10%. And greater Incinerate and Mobilize requirement reduced from 4 to 3 seconds. This channeling skills never feel good. Even if you go all the way back to, like Frost Breath on the Druid in Diablo 2, or Incinerate. I'm pretty sure we're still called Incinerate in Diablo 2 with the Sorc. These never feel good. These never ever feel good. Fireball mana costs decrease. That's huge. 15 per fireball decrease. That is really big. Though I guess, yeah, no, that's just great. That's going to feel really good for any fireball. Sorc. Frozen Orb base damage increased by 4%. The Explosion base damage increased by 5%. And then Greater Frozen Orb chance to apply vulnerable increased by 5%. That's really good. Frozen Orb, easily my favorite ability in the Diablo series. And a lot of games, other Diablos included, have tried to recreate the feeling of Diablo 2 Frozen Orb. And nothing has gotten it. Nothing has gotten that feel that Diablo 2 Frozen Orb had. But I am happy to see them continuing it in these games. Blizzard's base damage increase, nice. So the build that can already one-shot through a little bit of cheesy mechanics. Uber Lilith gets a damage buff of 10%. Ice Blade's chance to apply vulnerable increased by 10%. Big. Vulnerable obviously being one of the best multipliers in the entire game. Though with everybody using like the exploit glyph, I'm not really sure that these maybe if you can more easily apply vulnerable through other means, that means we won't need to use like the exploit glyph, which means that can open up another option somewhere else. Lightning Spear, summon Lightning Spear's maximum damage bonus increase from 100 to 160. That's really big. Crackling Energy up by 5%. Freezing Wake up, whoa, that's a really big one too, up by 50% on Freezing Wake. So they're really trying to hit the mark on some of these things. Legendary Aspects, chance to chain an additional enemy increased by 10%. That's pretty good. Slow amount, not really relevant. Incendiary, chance to restore mana. That's pretty good. And then damage reduction, 10% increase there. Not too bad. Mana regen by 10% there. Now, they have some item changes here, which I don't think we've seen item changes on any of the other characters. Flat damage increase on Flamescar, and then Staff of Lamessen. We have damage reduction reduced from 40 to 30, 35 to 25. So every single class getting the buff treatment here. That is really good. Now, I am not an advocate of always buff, never nerf. I'm not an advocate of that. I do think that there are plenty of times when there are things that need to be nerfed. They're way overpowered. I'm a Druid player, and I completely agree that the Tornado build is way overtuned. It's way too good. It is way too good. I would not be surprised to see that get nerfed. It didn't get any buffs in these patch notes here, so well, some of the tornado builds were starting to use Cataclysm a little bit instead of Petrify, and Petrify and Cataclysm both got buffs here. So I guess technically the tornado build did get a little bit of a. Oh no, they were. No, I'm sorry, not the tornado build. They used bestial. We used bestial rage, or grizzly rage. The other build that's kind of off meta, not a lot of people know about, the Earthen Bulwark build. Earthen Bulwark didn't get a buff, but Cataclysm and Petrify both did. So that build does get a little bit of a buff to itself, along with Claw getting a buff also. So guys, those are the buffs. That's that's the buffs. Teleport to your Nightmare Dungeons. They give you more experience now. They're going to be a little bit more worth doing. You're going to be able to get more experience from the Hell Tides. All of your builds got buffed. No matter what you're playing, you probably got a buff of some sort. You know, either whether it's quality of life, damage, essence gained, whatever the case may be. You get a little bit of a buff in some regard. So hey, let me know what you think about the buffs down in the comments below. Did they miss anything? Are there any buffs that they missed? I'm going to be thinking about that myself and get in the game and take a look at these things and see what they might have missed down there. Like the video, guys. Please like the video. Subscribe to the channel. Diablo 4 content pumping out all the time. And we're going to keep you up to date on all of these things. Again, remember, recently we put out a video about how to do more damage and understanding where your damage comes from in the builds. If you're a new player, make sure you check that out. Plenty of other videos out there, too, that we've done over the past couple of days. Make sure to give them a look. I'll see you guys later. Adios, muchachos.